Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Today, we're going to talk about something that all accomplished real estate investors really need to pay attention to, and that is building a business that can withstand the ups and downs of your life. Today, my friend and a guest on the show is Jake Chase, and he's had some health issues, he had other issues happen in his life, the types of things that really honestly happen to many of us. Unless you can build a business that can withstand those issues, then you're going to only have financial ups and downs in your life. So it'll be a great topic. That's what we're going to talk about today. Professional real estate investors know that it's not really about the real estate. In fact, real estate is just a vehicle to freedom. A group of over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors from across the country meet several times a year at the Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind to share ideas on how to strengthen each other's businesses, but also to come together as friends and build more fulfilling lives for all of those around us. On today's show, we're going to continue our conversation of fueling our businesses and fueling our lives. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Jake, welcome to the show.
All right, thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to see you, buddy. So, and we'll get into this a little bit, but I'll just say, good to see you, because I know you were having going through some health issues, which you're going to share with us today. So,
sure,
really get healthy again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to have health. That's all you got, right? That's
yeah.
After you go through it,
Yeah, and it's going to be, I think. I just told you kind of a little bit of joke, a little bit in jest, and I think hopefully people will appreciate this that are listening right now is, sometimes some of the best lessons we can learn are from others, like what happened to them, because you don't want these things to happen to you, and you had, not to steal your thunder, but you had some head trauma from a ski accident that really kind of put you in a tailspin for probably 6 to 9 months, right? And so at least 6 months. And so just to kind of tee up the type of stuff we're going to talk about today. And I do want to tell everybody real fast, I am in an Airbnb in San Antonio, Texas right now. If you can hear any background noise, if a siren goes by or something like that, I apologize. This place is an old building and it's not very soundproof. So apologize for any quality. And that's the last thing I'll say about that. So Jake, tell us a little bit about your background, and you and I have known each other for a number of years, but tell us about your background and kind of how you got started in real estate investing. You've been doing this for a long time.
It started when I was actually a teenager. I was in high school, and I had a friend, and he owned 200 units. And I just remember always wanting to be that guy. I'm like, how did he do that? How did he start out? How did he find the ways to start, buying these properties? And that was when I was just a teenager. And then when I was 19, I built my first house with my dad, and that kind of started the whole diving into the construction and the real estate and figuring out how to make that work. And I wanted to buy my first fourplex by the time I graduated college, and that came and gone. When you're in college, you don't really kind of focus on stuff like that. You want to play, you want to have fun. I belonged to a fraternity, and then, but it wasn't until after I graduated and got married that I started diving right into real estate. And I remember I was working for Campbell Soup at the time, and I was making $37,000 a year. I had a company car. They were paying all these things for me, so I was kind of hooked into it. But I bought my first condo, and I put about $8,000 into it and flipped it 5 weeks later and made it 42. So I made my year's wages in like 5 or 6 weeks of work that I was making all year long. And so I was hooked at that point in time.
Yeah.
And so that started evolving. That was back in 2001 when I did that. And since then, it just changed and evolved. And I started a construction company and started doing that. And then I realized I was babysitting there for a while. So then I just started becoming a full-time investor. Okay. And since then, I bought tons and tons of houses. I've probably been involved in over 1,000 transactions throughout the nation and with myself. And it's funny how you go through the ups and downs, and so throughout life. And everybody that was an investor in the wake felt that really, really deeply, some of us more than others. But, you bounce back and you come through it. And as you were talking about too, I had an accident just this last spring, and because of the systems that I had in place and the people I had in my life, I was able to kind of weather that. Because at any moment in time, business, life, things that just happen in the world can take you down in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit. I know we don't have to get into a lot of details, but these are the types of life things that happen to people. Health issues, going through a divorce, right? There's these issues that happen in our life, and sometimes, and I don't know your situation, I don't expect you to share
Sure.
details on that, but sometimes people lose, they might lose half of what they've built when going through a divorce. I mean, a divorce is a terrible thing to happen, but it happens to a lot of people, right? And financially, it could be devastating for
Yeah.
a lot of people too. And it's just, what I want people to get out of this show is to meet you and then just think about how to build a business that can withstand life, because life gets messy sometimes, right?
Yeah, and so many times, and I, get prideful sometimes as well too, and we think that we can do things ourselves, but just like the investor fuel as well too, it's like when you're surrounded by a bunch of people that do what you do and think like you do, you become so much more successful than doing it by yourself, and like you talked about back in '08 when the market crashed, and I went through a divorce, lost my business, what I was doing then. And I was scraping, all the way down the bottom of the barrel. And then I started speaking nationally on real estate and teaching from that point on time. That kind of retransformed where I was at. But, you can get knocked down at any time,
Yep.
And that was in '08. And since then I made it all back plus some, but it's amazing when you have a life event happen. And if you have the right things in place, then you can actually weather all of that, and I always like that saying that no matter what, it's going to be okay. It might not be the way that I want it or show up the way I want it to, but most of the time things are going to be okay.
Yeah. So what are some of the lessons that you've kind of learned going through these life things, as much as you're willing to share about them, about, okay, next time I'm going to do this. And, one of the things that we talk a lot about at Investor Fuel is building a better life, right? It's not always about being the biggest investor. Some of the biggest investors that appear that way on social media, for sure, are not that profitable, or there's some asterisks next to whatever they're saying.
Yes.
And I just think, a lot of people, I think some of it is because we're in an industry that is kind of centered around frugality, like be cheap, buy cheap, try to get stuff done cheap, like all this stuff. So
Sure.
what ends up happening is we cheap out on the quality of our, I'll say systems, but also people. Like we're just like, I'll just do it myself, or that person's not very good at it, but I'm going to have them do it anyway. We don't say that, but that's what we do.
Sure.
And so we tend to kind of be frugal on our entire infrastructure, which means it's very fragile, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So thoughts on that after having gone through at least this last incident where you had some health issues and you just couldn't work at all, like period.
Yeah. So back in the beginning of the year when I crashed skiing and I had a brain bleed, and they took me off the mountain. And I complained because I had this awesome helicopter ride and I don't remember any of it that I paid for, and I'm like, well, at least I could have remembered it. But there's about 3 days of my life I don't.
We were skiing together. Of course,
We were a couple weeks before.
I was never with you because you're like a master skier, and I'm like, basically on the non-mat. No, I wasn't on the bunny hill, but definitely not where you were. And this happened. That was out in Salt Lake City in February.
Yeah.
Your accident happened
2 weeks later. Yeah, about 2 weeks later.
2 weeks later, okay.
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks later, and I ski fast. I've skied fast since I was a kid, and I was probably going about 65 miles an hour. And to me, it was nothing like a big challenging thing. It was just something I was doing. I was on some new skis and caught an edge, and it slammed me down, But what I took from that, and it changed. It really did, because for a lot of my life, I was like, one more dollar, drive. And since then, like the biggest thing, and most of us, as you get toward our ages and you get older and we have kids, we have families, and I remember traveling so much, and then my daughters were growing up without me, and since the beginning of the year, my oldest, she's 15 now, she calls me almost every single day. And we have these conversations about boys and how things are in our life, what's going on. And she told me that, she goes, Dad, I never thought I'd have these conversations with you ever. She goes, when I was 10, 11, 12, there's no way I could trust my dad to tell him anything. And she's like, I tell you almost everything now. And so that shifted for me, because it went from, it's all about business to incorporating, family and also loved ones, and my relationship with people. They weren't so disposable, and it wasn't about chasing the next deal and being this boss that was just grind, and my way or the highway. And you become a little more gentle. But it's funny because I slowed down. That's what life taught me. And I slowed down, and since I've slowed down, I actually sped up. And I could have lost everything again after that accident. I couldn't drive for several weeks. In fact, it was almost a month I couldn't drive. My dad, he flew up from Utah, and I remember asking it because I still wasn't all there. And I said, Dad, are you here for vacation, or did you come out to see me? He goes, No, I came out to see you. And then a couple hours later, did you come out to see me, Dad, or did you come out on vacation? So I kept repeating there for a while.
I can vouch for we between my team and I talked to you a few different times. So we're like, it's kind of like when I talk to my grandmother, she's like tells me the same thing every time, but she's like, she's like in her late 80s. So I was like,
exactly.
Jake just said the same thing to me like 3 times.
And see, I think I just told you once, so. Exactly. And then people would tell me things all the time, and I would remember, or I'd make commitments. That's the biggest thing is I'm a man of my word, and when I say something, I do it. And so that was probably the biggest challenge for me, is because I would say something to somebody, and I wouldn't remember I told them. And so especially in work, when you're out there trying to work and make this happen, it was, thank God my team was understanding and could really be in place there. Yeah. And what it did is everything just really slowed down. It almost came to an end, for us over the kind of the late spring and summer there, until my cognitive started working again. It's amazing how long it took. To get going. And back in August, the end of August, I got introduced to some testing, and they did some things on my brain, and I realized I wasn't getting enough oxygen to repair things. But when I had that corrected, it was like I woke up. It was like I was laying in bed, and all of a sudden I woke up, and I was ready to go. And then all of a sudden my staff on my team, they're like, wow, the old Jake's back, but a better Jake. Yeah. So I don't know if it's because I was more caring or what it was, but all of a sudden, it's like the floodgates in September and now October have opened up for us. Like the deal flows are starting to go like crazy, and mainly we had systems in place, but it's like, wow, we need to have more efficient systems, because in business, when you're going, and especially in real estate, we call it being a lumpy business, and I've experienced it. I've been up, I've been down, I've been up, and I've been down. And one thing that we've really honed in now too is taking that lumpiness and just really make it nice and stable. And I don't know if that's becoming of my age or just the experience that I've had, because, you get tired of lumpy after a while.
It's a little bit of both, right? Like when you go through, we all know people that went through a health crisis that like yours was an accident, like unavoidable.
Right.
But I mean, unless you just didn't go skiing, but then, something else could happen. You get hit by a car.
Car accident, yeah.
Some people like eat bad, they have weight issues, and then they get sick. They have a heart issue or they have cancer. Other things that they presumably probably could have had a little more control over.
Sure.
But going through that health issue, then all of a sudden they're different, right? They like it took that happening for them to take action, which is not a good thing. And I'm guilty. We're all guilty of kicking the can down the road.
It takes a crisis to make a change, right?
Yeah. But the question is in your business, how do you build a business that can weather those storms? And my guess is it was a combination of your team picking up the ball, like just picking up things that they had to do that they didn't normally have to do. Probably for me, my business tends to operate a little bit better when I'm away because I'm not in there causing problems.
Right.
Breaking things that were fine before, And so it's probably a little bit of element of like your team just focusing on basic fundamental blocking and tackling, which is a lot of what this business is, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so give some guidance on. And I'm not saying it doesn't sound like, it sounds like you've got wisdom from this that you'll do differently if there is a next time. God forbid, hopefully there's no next time. But how do you kind of, people that are listening right now, how do you give them some guidance on building a business, whether it's through simplifying your business model, it could be through having the right people in place, systems, processes, all that stuff, so that your business, if you're away, maybe you're on vacation even, right? It doesn't have to be maybe you're away for an extended period of time and the business can still operate without you.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I always tell people, and I've mentored hundreds of students over the years, and one thing I would tell anybody that came to me, and it's funny because I'm mentoring a gal right now that started at the beginning of the year, and it's good that she's been patient with me, but she's bought 7 or 8 homes since the beginning of the year, where another gal came to me and she's like, let me try it out myself first, and then I'll come and have you mentor me, and she hasn't bought anything. So the first thing I tell people, like, if you want to get into something, get a mentor. I know you have an amazing program that you have that you teach people as they first come into real estate and mentor them as well too. And the thing that I realized too is I can't do this myself. And I always tell people, if you go to buy a property that's a fire damage house and you've never done fire damage before, don't do it. Go find somebody that's done fire damage before, partner up with them, and then you'll learn across the process as you go through it. Yep. And so when you're setting this up, and you'll gain experience, whether you're brand new and you don't know anything, and you're learning it. But what happens is as you go through time and you get the experience, then you start having people that can start being like buying houses for you, that can actually be on the phones, making phone calls for you. The number one thing in my life that has really saved my butt is having a really good assistant or somebody in my office that watches out for me, takes care of me. Sometimes I don't like it, because I don't like to be managed sometimes, but I need to be managed just as well. But, when you have something that's up and running, and I've gone on countless vacations. In fact, the last couple of years, people said, it seems like you're gone more than you are in your office working, but that changes. So it's, as you build a system in place that makes it happen, it gives you kind of that freedom to do what you want to do. Okay?
Yeah. And I think, for people, if anybody's listening to this, a lot of the people that we interview on the show here, they're all Investor Fuel members. So they're people that are operating generally at a pretty good level.
Sure.
So if you're newer, one of the challenges is getting your business to the point to where you can pull yourself out of it. Because when you're new, if you're doing like a deal, even if you're doing a deal or two a month, you generally can't afford any staff.
Correct.
You're any money you're making, you're putting in your pocket or putting back into advertising, right?
Right.
And so you have to have a business that is scaled up to make any of this work, because you can't have an assistant, you can't have a salesperson, an acquisitions manager, if you're doing a deal or two a month, most likely. I mean, if you're in Northern California where you're at and the margins are really high, maybe, right? But my point is unless you have a business that's profitable enough to outsource some of your tasks, then you just have a job. And in the event you get hurt or have some issue that pulls you away.
Yeah, I remember early on, I had this condo I lived in, and it had a yellow window in the kitchen, and it was dark. It had the kitchen and the living room downstairs and 2 bedrooms upstairs, and it was dark, and I hated it. But that was my office. It was just me. I waited for the phone call to ring. I tried to make phone calls. I had a little notebook that I kept track. This was before the electronic CRMs came out and everything else like that. And I was writing everything in a notebook, and I put B if it was a good buyer, with a big square on it, and I managed it all myself. But, at the beginning I hustled. You have to hustle, and when you're out there, you got to be putting yourself out there. And the hardest thing is you will get in the way of you, and because, when you're out there talking to people, confidence is a big thing that you need to have. And so when you have the confidence, even if you don't know everything right now, if you exude that confidence, you bring a level of comfortability with anybody that you're dealing with and who's coming to talk to you. That includes people that are selling their houses. And that's where you get the biggest deals, is actually when you're in the home at a kitchen table talking to somebody about their home. We bought stuff on the MLS through realtors, and the deals are there, but they're just not as big as if you were to do that as well too. And so that comes with time. And so like what you're talking about, if you're new getting into this, and you got to start somewhere, you got to be your assistant. You got to be your bookkeeper. You've got to, be the salesperson that goes out there and talks, and you got to be a disposition manager that you're trying to sell it some way or the other, Investment clubs are a fantastic venue to go to as well too, because there's people out there buying and selling homes all the time. A lot of them have programs they try and sell, but you go to the ones that they actually present properties. And then I always go and find out people in the room who bought 5 or more properties for that year at least. And those tell you the players out there. And then that's where you start talking to people and saying, hey, can I just shout at you? Can I just ask you a couple questions? Can I take you out to lunch? I'll buy your lunch. And can I just pick your brain? Because any one of us who've been doing this for a while loves sitting down with somebody new coming into the business and picking up. I'll take a free lunch any day. And so, and you can tell that, and so, especially over the last couple of months here, but, anybody with knowledge loves to teach it, and I come from a place of abundance, and there's tons of stuff out there that you can go out there.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. If you're listening to this and you're doing, even a couple deals a month consistently, or it's not, units don't really matter ultimately, but I'm just kind of saying the type of margins you would make in the average market off of 2 deals a month, or less, probably isn't enough to build on a team yet. And so
Absolutely.
That's where, a lot of people say they want to get in, they want freedom, they want financial freedom and freedom of your time. If you're not making enough money to support a staff, then you don't have the ability to enjoy your life. I'm not saying that your life sucks, but you can't just go take off for a week or go disappear, or if you have a health issue and you're forced to not work, you can't weather those storms because there's nobody else there to do the work that you're doing, right?
Exactly. It's funny too, and that you say that, and you and I both know people in the investor mastermind that started out doing 1 or 2, and within a year, they were doing 100 homes plus, and
Yeah.
it's amazing that how fast it'll grow, especially if you have the right people in place that you can go and talk to. Hey, I'm going this direction. Oh, well, I wouldn't do that. Here's kind of the roadblocks, the mistakes that you'll make, and it's amazing how fast it'll change in your life by doing a little bit of work. And so if you look at it that way, say, hey, I'm going to hustle as fast as I can for this next year and just work my butt off. And it's amazing by what you can build just in a year. And then all of a sudden you have the staff. You're going to need the staff, right? Because you can't handle everything. You'll go out of it. You'll need to add all that stuff into it.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt. And for those of you, we're kind of on a tangent now of talking about growing and ramping up, which is a good one. That's what what we talk a lot about in the Investor Fuel Mastermind. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of things switch when you realize that, one, I don't have the freedom in my life that I want of time. And two, when you start to look at people and systems and investments in your business, like the structure of your business, as an investment instead of an expense. Like a lot of us are quick to spend a lot of our time doing something or to invest money in advertising, which is critical to generate leads. But we hold back on like people and stuff because, we just, for some reason, we're just like, it's expensive sometimes, but the question is, what will it cost you if you are not able to scale your business to a point to where you can step out for at least some short period of time, right?
Yeah, what's funny about that as well too, and I think you just said a word there. I don't know if everybody heard this or not, but it's called fear. We're afraid that it's not going to work. If we throw out a bunch of money or we throw out a bunch of time, that it won't work because you don't trust it yet. It's like when I remember teaching students, I'm like, do your first house first and don't do any others because students will get excited and they'll want to do a couple of them. Like, no, do your first one so you can see that you do it, and then you got to do number two because you don't believe that you just did number one, so you got to prove it to yourself. Then you do number three because now you have all the systems, you break out all the kinks. And if you screw up, you only screw up one house, not 5 in a row, and then you can go from there. But it's like when I had a construction company there for a while, and I had 11 employees. This is right before the crash, and same thing. I lost everything. I went from all these employees. We were doing, tons of remodels a month. We were probably doing 6 to 10 remodels at different houses every month, and so it was just cranking out the business, and then everything crashed, and the investing, I had all these homes that I had to try and get out from under that we have had out there, at various stages of rehab. And I was short selling this one over here, and I ended up getting foreclosed on one of my hard money lenders. And I said, you're never going to do business with me again, are you? And he goes, no, you've made us a lot of money, so we're going to, keep using you. And so that changed, then I went through that divorce and people don't realize that when life kicks you down and knocks you in the teeth, you can get up. And in fact, you get up stronger, and you find people in your life that match you, that can actually guide you in a different direction so you don't have to go through that again, and that's probably been one of the biggest things for me is I never want to go through what I went back in 2008 ever again in my life, and that power and that thing that came up for me and that installed in that knowledge in me, it just made me a better business person and a better person. Just in life in general. That way I can do things differently. And now since my accident this last year, it just really got me in line of smoothing things out, and we talk about being lumpy. I just realized too, as investors, we take the cream off the crop a lot of times, who's calling us and who we're chasing. But the biggest thing, especially if you're by yourself, you've got to have a really solid backup system that you can go and do all your follow-ups. Because if you're not following up, you're not chasing these leads that you've already come to you, you're going to miss out on a lot of this stuff. And that's what stabilizes your business is all of the follow-ups. The lumpy business comes because, we got some luck this month and the right people called us to buy these homes, but if you keep doing all the follow-ups, and that's why I had that little notebook, and that's what made me really successful at the beginning is I had this notebook that every time I'd go through every week and say, okay, who's my B's with the square around it and who do I go call? And that really just started growing my business incrementally. And that was just me.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you grow, you start to not get to those things quickly enough. And that's where systems and good people come in to kind of,
Exactly. Yeah. It takes time. And so what happens is that people come into your life that have a better system that you're using or something different. You're like, oh, let me try that. Some things work and some things don't, and the biggest thing for me that I've learned is that having the right people surround you, give you the right information that you need at the right time.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. We believe that. So if you wouldn't mind, Jake, as I guess kind of from having the right people around you, you're a member of our Investor Fuel Mastermind. Would you mind kind of sharing a little bit of testimonial on what it's been like since you joined? You have a lot of experience and you came to the group. I
Sure.
don't know what your expectations were when you joined the group, but curious, if you could give listeners a little bit of feedback if they're not a member yet.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how I found Investor Fuel really through you, Mike, and I belonged to another organization, and it did some advertising for me, and it changed, and it wasn't working the way I did, and so when I found you guys, it was amazing, and the systems that I found in place just really started scaling my business in a different direction, and my results just skyrocketed. And then I could track everything. I didn't know exactly where things were at in my business before. The thing that really stood out for me for Investor Fuel, because really when I first came into Investor Fuel, like, do these guys really care about me? They're just here just because they're running this, mastermind. But it was Stinson, I have to tell you, that was the really cornerstone. And he came. I remember after my accident, he came to me. He said, Jake, he said, I know you're struggling right now and you're not coming to meetings. He goes, but I look at you as one of my good friends. I was like, really? And he came to me and he came to talk to me. He says, no, I really care about your success. And that's what happened and that evolved for Investor Fuel is that, not just you guys that run Investor Fuel, but the men and women who are part of that group really care about each other's success. And a lot of times as business owners, we want to keep things to our vest and hide them and, oh, here's what I use. But we really have this abundant mindset that share with each other on that as well too. So it's amazing to me to be a part of a group that not one just has tools, but also they really care about my business, my success, and my health. I don't know how many times Stinson called me because I don't remember all those times, or the conversations that I had with him, but I just remember it seemed like weekly he'd follow up with me. Hey, how you doing? How you healing? How things going? And I remember there for a while, a couple of times I talked to him and I was like, I got to go to the hospital. I got to do all these testing and I have something going on. I might be having a heart attack. I had all this anxiety there for a while and he was just always there for me. You guys seem to show up and be more that's there. And when you're building a business and when you're building it there, you don't have to do this alone. And that's what Investor Fuel is for me, is I don't have to be alone trying to make this thing work, especially when life events are happening. And life events happen to all of us.
No doubt.
And so Investor Fuel took not just my business, like I said, after the accident, my business changed. The way I thought about it was not one more dollar. It's like, how do I run a business and have integrity in it, but also this abundant mindset that I can give back and grow along the same way. Like I said before, I slowed down to speed up. It's really weird. I never knew that would happen, and so that's where the Investor Fuel is for me. And this is going to be my first meeting coming back to see you guys again after about 3 or 4 months now, so I'm excited actually to be back and sit down with you guys and see what the tools out there and really see all my friends. And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Jake, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I will say on the note of friends, I mean, we say that this is becoming kind of a cheesy cliche now, but entrepreneurship and, I say real estate investing, it's really probably entrepreneurial businesses like ours. It's lonely, right? You get out there and you're doing stuff and it's like, it really helps to get around people like us that understand what we're all going through because we're all going through the same things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good and bad.
Well, it's funny that you think that you're the only one that experienced something, and then you come and you talk to other people like, "Oh, I've been through that." They're like, "You have?" This is how you get through it, and somebody will say something and it'll click, and they're like, "Oh, wow, that's it? That's all you do to get through that little challenge, whatever it is." And that's what's nice to have people put pieces in place that you wouldn't even think of being alone like that.
Yeah.
And being an entrepreneur is not easy, right?
Yeah, I think as small businesses too, we're these type A personalities where we're just like. A lot of us want to figure it out on our own because we're just natural problem solvers.
Yes.
But you tend to not have people in your life every day that are around you every day that are also problem solvers that you respect their opinion. And so when we get the group together and you have a problem, you're like, well, I had that too. Here's how I fixed it. And you almost don't really hesitate to trust and believe that can work for me. And so it allows us to implement stuff way faster because like the impetus of this entire show of learning from other people's life issues and things like that, it's the same thing. It's like business issues, somebody's been through that, somebody's dealing with it right now. Call this guy, he can help you with that. Whatever it is, we just iterate much faster because collectively we've been through so many things.
Yeah, that's where it started out with Investor Fuel. I didn't have a lot of systems coming because I had a system that did everything for me for the last 6 years, and things have changed. Things have changed in advertising, how things work. And so I just remember, contacting you and contacting Stimson. They're like, oh, call this guy. Oh, call that guy. Call this guy. And this is before I attended any meeting, right? And before I came to any Investor Fuel event. So it was really nice for me to actually start seeing that happening beforehand as well too. And and when people give you those little snippets of things, it really transforms your business and what's coming up next for you.
Yep, no doubt. So Jake, if folks want to learn more about you or get a hold of you, or where do they go for that?
Absolutely. The easiest way is to go homeiqpros.com. So that's a little logo here. So at homeiqpros.com, you can reach out as well there, and my staff here can get a hold of you.
Awesome. homeiqpros.com. We'll add a link down below in the show notes too.
Yeah, there's one on Facebook too. So Facebook.com/homeiqpros.
Okay.
We're on Facebook as well. Mm-hmm.
We'll find that. We'll add all these links down below in the show notes. And awesome, buddy. Well, glad you're healthy again. Looking forward to seeing you next week, actually, at Investor Fuel.
Pleasure, man. I really enjoy being here. Thanks, Mike, for having me.
Take care, buddy. Good to see you. Take care. Everybody, thanks for joining us for today's show. Hope you got some value out of that. Life is going to happen to us, but it's just really a matter of kind of how you prepare to kind of withstand those issues. So hope you got some value. If you did, we'd love it if you'd subscribe if you haven't yet on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, YouTube, everywhere and anywhere you could possibly listen to a podcast or watch a show. We're probably there. So wherever you're watching us right now, leave us a positive review and subscribe if you haven't. Of course, you can watch every show that we've done so far on flipnerd.com or at investorfuel.com. Everybody, have a great day. See you on the next show.
Are you an active real estate investor? If so, and you want to latch on to the power of surrounding yourself with over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors, all committed to building stronger businesses and living richer, fuller lives, you should jump on a call with us to learn more about Investor Fuel. Simply visit investorfuel.com to get started.